The day has arrived. The day when all of human history is suspended in time and eternity converges. Before the mighty throne, every soul stands exposed, and every secret, every action is weighed in the balance of divine justice. For those whose names are not written in the book of life, there is no escape. The sentence is final, a path of dread, one that offers no return, leading to the second death, the lake of fire. But then, the silence that had reigned for so long was shattered. A sound filled the universe, not heard with the ears, but felt deep within the souls of the departed. It was the great trumpet, the call to the final judgment. From the lonely deserts to the forgotten depths of the oceans, all of creation responded to its creator. The dead were summoned. Just as it was written, the sea gave up its dead. From battlefields, from the tombs of kings, and from the graves of ordinary people, they rose. But they did not rise as they once were, no longer as sailors, soldiers, or peasants, but as souls who had been summoned to face their judgment. Death and hell, the ancient keepers of the dead, could hold their prisoners no longer. From every corner of the earth, from every age of human history, a torrent of souls ascended. Their earthly lives were behind them now, and their journey was toward only one destination, the place where all of humanity, those from the beginning of time and those who would come at the end, would stand together before the judgment seat to face their final reckoning. As the resurrection was completed, a great assembly, unlike anything the universe had ever seen, stood in silence before the throne. Billions of souls awaited their turn, yet they were not alone. In the shadows of glory, bound in chains, stood those who had once been light, the fallen angels awaiting their own judgment. And then the books were opened, the record of every deed, every word, every hidden secret. But there was one book that held greater significance than all others, the book of life. Time stood still. The universe itself held its breath. And in that moment, the first name was about to be called. The summons echoed through the hall. Not just a name, but the weight of an entire life. For each soul whose name was called, a mirror appeared, a divine screen, where nothing, absolutely nothing, could remain hidden from view. The merchant was the first. The image that appeared was his greed, the dishonest coin, the scraps of his soul, the indifference he held for the poor, his disdain for the needy, his false piety, his public displays of charity that masked a life of private corruption. His pride and arrogance crumbled into utter shame. But the verdict was already written, not in ink, but in the deeds of his own life. Then came the conqueror. His testimony was not of riches, but of lives. The screen revealed the bloody glory he had so eagerly sought, and the cold cruelty that lay hidden behind the walls of his home. His pride as a warrior became a burden of shame as he realized that true strength was never in the sword but in the heart. Finally, the one who had once thought herself righteous stood before the throne. She had believed her actions were pure, but the mirror reflected the hidden truth, the arrogance, the judgmental attitude, the bitterness that had poisoned her soul. As the judgment of each soul unfolded, the weight of their actions was laid bare. No longer could they hide behind false pretenses. No longer could they cloak their deeds in the shadows of ignorance. For the final reckoning had come, and in that moment, the truth would be revealed and the path to eternity would be sealed. If you're finding this video compelling, don't forget to subscribe to Mind Manifestor for more thought-provoking content. Stay tuned for more revelations and deep reflections as we continue this journey together. The screen first displayed her good deeds, the applause, the admiration of the world. She stood there, puzzled, asking, "What now?" You might not believe what came next. Hidden beneath the surface, a darker truth emerged. The silent poison, the words that had ruined her reputation, the envy masked by a smile. The sin that no one saw, the kind that weighed heavier than all her outward acts of charity. And then came the politician, with his bribery. The cowardice that buried the talent that could have changed the world. The king and his insatiable desires. The scientist and his arrogance. No one, not a single soul, could conceal their sins anymore. Each sin, each act of neglect, each unspoken jealousy, it all came to light. Life after life, the testimony was given. The record of every soul was sealed. The time for excuses was over. The book of life was closed. For countless souls, the silence that followed was the only answer. There was nothing left to say. The divine judgment was final. A cold, pale light descended from the heavens, not to judge further, but to summon. The hour of sentencing had arrived. Then began the final procession, a procession of lost souls, escorted by angels of justice, moving toward their destiny. A portal opened, leading into an abyss of fire and darkness. The second death. There was no more resistance, no more defiance, only the dreadful harvest of the lives they had sown. One by one, they were led into the eternal darkness, and the portal slowly closed behind them. Justice had been fulfilled. As the judgment of mankind was complete, the focus shifted to an older darkness, the angels who had abandoned their glorious positions, who had rebelled of their own volition. These fallen beings were brought forth from their chains of darkness and stood in the light of divine judgment. For them, there were no deeds to be reviewed, no books to be opened. Their sin was written in the very fabric of existence. The pure light of divine truth became the witness to their betrayal, exposing the depth of their fall. Their verdict was delivered with a simple, silent gesture, a decree sealing their fate with unimaginable horror. They marched, not as defiant rebels, but as prisoners of their own treachery. The same portal that had consumed humanity opened again for their punishment. With unyielding force, they were cast into the eternal fire, ending the rebellion that had begun before time itself. The war was over, and their fate was sealed forever. Now, with all rebellion vanquished, only the final enemies remained, the very forces of darkness that had plagued creation from the beginning. Death and hell, the ancient prison for souls, were summoned for their final annihilation. No trial was needed. A decree was all that was necessary. The power they had held over the souls of humanity was revoked in an instant, dragged by the sheer authority of divine justice. The ancient jailers were led into the lake of fire, the second death consuming death itself. And with their destruction, the cycle of pain, sin, and separation was finally broken. The judgment was complete. From the ashes of the old universe, a new creation emerged, new heavens and a new earth, where death no longer had a place. As this universe of judgment and rebirth came to its conclusion, we are reminded of the eternal power of divine justice. But don't let this be the end of your journey. Keep reflecting, keep seeking truth. There's always more to discover, and Mind Manifestor will continue to guide you through these deep and thought-provoking narratives. Stay tuned for more insights and revelations.